Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Zero Proof Life, our awesome YouTube channel. I have loved that we have started this, Brandi.
Oh, me too, Karla. It's so much fun. I really enjoy that we get to have these conversations with each other and too like bring these fun and interesting topics that I think either people in the sober space are talking about or our members or just as coaches too, which is great.
Absolutely. And that's what inspired this. So I want y'all to know that are either watching this or listening to this. I am doing this to poor Brandi. She has no idea what I'm going to ask her.
Bring it
But I
on.
was I was inspired by watching someone, in the alcohol-free community. And it was one of those posts, we see them all the time about like the must do things or do these three things in order to be successful. And it really sparked my mind because some of them I wasn't so sure how I felt about, or others I knew I really wanted to add to it because I always want to place myself in the position of being that listener that before I stopped drinking, I would have held on to things like that. And like that was the end all be all, like, oh my gosh, if I don't do that, I'm not going to be successful. Where again, and this might be true for some people, but I think it's important for us to talk about. And I think, again, why I love this channel so much is it's a way for people to get to know us, how we approach things, and also what alcohol-free life can be like.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so Brandi has no idea what I'm going to ask her. So she was totally up for it and a great sport. And so what we're going to go over three things that I saw this person say, but again, this is also a common belief out there. So it wasn't the first time I'd heard it before. And the first thing is that you cannot hang around the same people if you're going to be alcohol free.
Oh, you saw my
Yeah,
face already shift on
right.
that one, I bet.
Exactly. And that's when I said, "Ooh,
Oh.
Brandi, I want to do a YouTube video." Because the first one, but it was just this number one. You cannot be around the same people if you want to be successful, and being alcohol free. What comes up for you when I say that?
Wow. Okay. I'm excited that I didn't know what these were because
Right.
I get to have that immediate, like kind of initial reaction. And then us getting to talk through it, we'll see how things shift and change a little bit too. So, so what immediately came up for me was a little bit of defensiveness, actually. So that was
Mhm.
interesting to just notice. And
Yep.
so, so I'm coming up on 5 years alcohol free at the recording of this video right now. And when I think back on and I look at my life now and think back on the people that I was spending time with, and I one so one thing comes up for me personally is you have a support system that's around you, and you
Mhm.
have people who love you and are supportive and want to like make the best of your life and like have support you in making your life just come to this beautiful place. That's always
Mhm.
the hope, right? That we all have people in our lives like that. And so I feel like that statement is assuming that there's no one in your life that wants the best for you. And yeah, and so that is like kind of the immediate thing that comes up for me is that it's assuming that everyone around you is in like this like awful place of despair, maybe around alcohol as well, and also that they can't be a support system for you.
Mm.
So that's one of the initial things that comes up for me.
It's so good. Yes, I'm so
Yeah,
glad you said that. Yeah.
good. No, I'm glad. Well, yeah, because and then also there's also the flip side of it too. There's like this other part of me that also has, I also recognized where I had to make some adjustments to my social life. Like I think back on the first few months, and there were spaces and places and people that I took a little bit of space from, but I didn't
Mhm.
cut them out of my life. It was more of like, I'm going to put myself in this like self-imposed cave for the next like
Yes.
30, 45 days essentially. And kind of live here while I just get comfortable with myself again and get comfortable in being and living life without alcohol. And then I'll dip my toe back into some of these places and relationships and things like that. But but I think the hard part I have with it is that it's so black and white. It sounds like that statement does. So I'm curious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what hit me in it. Cause I was like, when I heard that, and again, I've heard it before. So I know
Mhm.
this is a common, it might be worded a little bit different here or there, but it is a very common statement that is made. And, on one hand, there's again, like you said, it's just not so black and white. That's not real world.
Yeah.
And if I had been listening to that, before I stopped drinking, that would have been very overwhelming for me. Like, how do I even do that? And as being a really natural introvert, that also would have sparked me and going, oh, so now I have to be around new people. That would have been intimidating.
Oh,
Like, I've got to
yeah.
be around all new people. I don't know these people. Um,
Great point.
and yeah, and also, that's just not going to be the case for a lot of people. Sometimes your spouse drinks. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you're in a work environment. Um, Saying that you have to change the people, I think can be a stumbling block for people and might intimidate people when they want to dip their toe into the alcohol-free world. I was same as you, where there were several people that I knew I need to take a little bit of time from. But at this point, we're still just as good friends. It just looks a little bit different. I needed
Exactly.
to learn my alcohol-free, how I was going to be alcohol free and how to do social life. So there were some people that I didn't. There was other people that I did go around, but I just needed to put some boundaries up. I always drove myself,
Yep.
always knew I had a way out, knowing that I was going to be able to leave. And also, we grow and we change. And so people in my life have grown and they've changed. And so some people aren't there anymore. And that's okay. I think what struck me was that you can't hang around the same people. And I do
Yeah.
understand where a lot of people are coming from, because there are some people that are toxic and they are not going to support you in this alcohol-free journey. And, you hate to say that, but that has been the reality. I know for some of our clients, some people that we've coached, where people are like, come on, just drink. And they're really trying to encourage you, or it's really not a healthy environment. But what I've seen as people get healthier, as they step away from alcohol, they're able to deal with those situations better. And then they
Yeah.
organically just break away.
Yes, exactly. It's
Yeah.
so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, and even just like as you're saying that, what's coming to mind for me is, it's like I'd love to just reword it, right? Like I'd love to
Right.
reword it and say like maybe assess your social circles, like
Yes.
assess your social environment and make those decisions, because like you said, like you can move away and you can come back and it'll look different, but it still is possible to have relationships. And you may have some that you do need to like cut off,
Right.
or that's going to end up being the healthiest thing, but oftentimes there's a lot more having to do with that than alcohol when it
Right.
comes to those relationships as well. Like the example you gave of someone pressuring you to,
Yeah.
like that's not really probably a friendship that's in your best interest, or a relationship that's in your best interest to begin with anyway. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
again, I'm glad. Thank you for letting me throw it out there. This
Yes,
next
I
one
love
is a
it.
little bit tricky, but again, it's a common one that I've heard before.
Yeah.
But in order to be successful in being alcohol free, you have to stay busy. You have to keep yourself busy.
Mm.
You are your worst enemy in alone time, when becoming alcohol free. And this one is kind of tricky. So I don't
It
know.
is
What are your
tricky.
thoughts
Oh,
when I say
yeah.
that?
This is a good one too. These are fantastic. I'm really enjoying these. Okay, so I like I agree and I disagree with that one,
Right.
because I would definitely say that when you're just getting started, there's a lot of importance to staying busy.
Hmm.
Especially during craving times, right? Like there's that time where you just need to like really like move and be busy and be out and about and making plans and things like that, and just really staying constant. But I think what's different when I think about busy, I think about like action, do, where and so this is the other part of that, where I think as well what's so important is that when you're going through this process, it's not just about the distraction busy, it's actually about staying busy in an intentional way. So doing things like spending time, taking an hour to journal, taking
Hmm.
an hour to read some quitlet or listen to some podcasts, or watch videos of people that are in a place of being able to support you. Like,
Mhm.
so I think I look at it from a couple, like when you hear that phrase, you immediately think like, oh, I got to do all the things and stay active and, and stay out of here, where
Right.
in and out of here. And in reality, I think what you and I both know is here and here are two of the most important places to go when
Mhm.
you're going through this process.
Yes.
And, it's two of the big places we focus on in the Zero Proof Life Compass as well, for that reason, because we've got to work on these things to understand how we've been using alcohol, to understand how it's been showing up, why we've been using it in the way we have been. And until we start actually honing in on these things, that maybe alcohol has been just completely numbing or quieting or whatever the case might be, it's going to be, where are we going to go once we don't have anything to be busy with anymore? Like, what's
Right.
going to happen?
Yes. So,
So,
okay,
what are your
that is where
thoughts?
I was with it. I
Mm.
I learned so much in some of that quiet time. And I think
Mm.
when I hear that, I don't want people to be afraid to be in here and here, like in your
Yes.
heart and in your head. Like, I remember this is where I discovered how the different jobs I did give alcohol. I remember, and I wrote about it in my book that first time, where I actually said out loud, where like, whew, so this is what it's like to feel,
Yeah.
learning how to sit with that, learning that feeling and understanding that, I don't need to go completely just go distract myself. It's okay to sit with it. I love what you said about being intentional, because I totally agree. Changing up things, changing your routine around things, especially let's say around dinner time, having a plan
Yeah.
is important. But I love what you said about, because when I hear that too, my mind went to like just distract, stay away
Hmm.
from the actual feeling. And honestly, we've been doing a lot of that with numbing out.
Yes.
So there's such a learning process. And it really can be eye-opening, where you learn about yourself and also learn like, hey, I can actually feel that and I don't need to numb out. I, moved on and did this and it worked for me. But changing patterns and keeping yourself with things to do can be, obviously, planning is key.
Yeah.
Many times when people are stepping away from alcohol, I think it's important though to be intentional and not trying to run from feelings. I think
Agreed.
that's what I want to stress to people, and that you don't need to be afraid of yourself, you know?
Yes.
Um, and that is going to take me into the third one. And you'll laugh, because you'll know why this struck a certain way for me, is that initially when you stop drinking, you cannot be alone. You need to be around people. Surround yourself with community. And I know you're laughing because
Wait, are we back to number one again?
right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And it was, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so you're saying it's so interesting, because one, it's like you can't be
Yeah.
around the same people, but then the other one, in order to be successful, is
Mm.
surround yourself with people.
Yeah.
So again, we're hearing it in the terms of, okay, I need to do this in order to be successful. What does that look like as a coach? What did that look like for you when someone's stopping drinking?
Yeah, so interesting, because I think this is also one, is it important to have community through this process? 100%.
Mhm.
But and I know you'll speak to this, Karla, but you're a prime example of being able to do it also without community,
Mhm.
and so I think again, like living from this very like black and white place is so hard, because even mentioning the idea of one-on-one coaching, right? Like, so you and I both do one-on-one coaching as well, and so a lot of times that even that and is enough of a community for people, like just knowing somebody's got their back. And so having that experience, now for me, I did find community, so I did quit through community. I did a 30-day alcohol experiment, which led into like a smaller, more intensive group for a few months after that. So I definitely, like, I found an online community that I was working with, very similar to like what we do with the challenges at Zero Proof Life, um and then into ZPL, like very similar in that capacity. And so I found that to be really helpful to me. And at the same time, it was also that like I knew I had that out there, but I was in a place where a lot of times I think I didn't realize and think I was capable of doing these things unless, I was always looking outward
Mhm.
for other people to give me the answers and, hand me all the tools. And granted, did I get a ton of tools and support out there? Yes, I did. And it was also a really great time for me to recognize and realize like I've got this. Like I can do this. The power is here. Like that
Mhm.
ability is here. And so yeah, so this one is interesting because I definitely like agree there's got to be some element of community, but that can look like a variety of things too. Community doesn't necessarily, it could be your spouse, like it could be, it could be your best friend, it could be a family member, or it could be an online community. I think it community it could be at your church. Like
Mhm.
there's just a variety of ways that can look.
Right.
And so I think the idea of community is fantastic. And also considering what does that look like for me, maybe as more of an introvert, maybe being in an online community isn't the right place for me to get started.
Mhm.
Or in-person meetings of course as well. So
Right.
yeah, so
Right.
I'd
Yeah,
love to
this
hear your
one, as soon
thoughts.
as they said that, I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
because I again, and it's when things are so black and white, I think I'm always gonna struggle with that. Because 'cause I'm like, "Really? We all need to treat this, everybody's different, and everybody's an individual and unique." And, for me, I didn't have a community when I became alcohol free.
Yeah.
Um, but this is what happened for me. It was really beautiful, and especially because I was very much a alone drinker. I would drink by myself. I really was, hid it from the world. Um, it was actually really important for me to learn how to be alone.
Mm.
It was really important. Now, when I say that, I also wasn't out there tempting myself. I mean, I've talked with, and coached with people before. They're like, well, and I immediately drank. Well, they had stocked their favorite wine in the refrigerator. And so it was sitting there with them while they were alone. I had boundaries. And I say many times, and those that work with me, I know are going to shake their head and smile because I say this so often, but alcohol was off the table for me. It was
Mhm.
off the table as an option. And that was my mindset. I'm not going to drink. And
Mhm.
so during that time, I learned how to feel the feels and I learned how to be alone. And that was really important. And I saw myself grow a lot during that. And again, like, get comfortable with the feeling, those intense things that hit, and know, okay, I don't have to go reach for a drink, but I learned other tools to use instead. But I will say, and I remember having this conversation eventually with my physician, and I know she worried about me because I said, I'm so alone. I feel so alone.
Mm.
I feel like I'm on an island. I think that's exactly what I said because I didn't know anybody else that was alcohol free. And that's when I found community. That's when I found and went into coach training and I found all of y'all. And I mean, it was a game changer for me to have that support. And we will all say as coaches, um, I hands down believe that I'm as strong as I am in this alcohol free journey because I have stayed in it. We have stayed in it. We have stayed coaching around it. We've stayed, being one-on-one, doing group programs. So we're staying in the information, staying in the data. And something important for people to remember is when I've watched people step away completely from community, we forget we are being sold constantly that alcohol is good. Alcohol helps. This is what you need. And a lot of people say, I don't fall for that stuff. Listen, they wouldn't spend billions of dollars on it if this stuff didn't work. And what I've heard time after time after time was that they just slowly was like, well, was it really that bad? We have that
Right.
very real thing called fading effect bias that happens. And it's
Mhm.
just like, I feel like, now I'd be okay. And it can be a slippery slope for people to be in an area where they're just completely alone. But I agree with you. It can look different for everybody. Some people, there's such a powerful Instagram community, alcohol-free community.
Big time.
I remember seeing people and following them, and that it would excite me. I always encourage people, stay in it somehow that feels right to you, that feels
Yeah.
organic. Some people just have a small group chat that they have connected where they've met in other places and they just continue to have that conversation. It's why we love our Zero Proof Life community so much, because we just all stay in it together. And it's just that world of, supporting each other and being alcohol free. We have our challenges that, again, those are some of my favorite things to do, but make it look right for you. And it can look different when we hear certain things. And again, going back to that person listening, like thinking, okay, I need to stop drinking. I'm scared. These are the things I have to do. Those things that I've listed can seem to me that would be like, oh my gosh, like a mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And I just want people to hear that it doesn't have to be so black and white. You can really make this look how it needs to look for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to fit in this box. Like
Right.
you're making one decision. The rest of it can all look different. Like you said, just this comes off the table. And then everything else, the way you do it, the way you go about it is going to be unique for each person.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
I
And then
love
you
that, Karla.
learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
You learn as you go. Like if something doesn't work, oh,
Yes.
that didn't work. So when, you know what,
Yeah.
we're going to learn from that and get right back up and, tweak our plan a little bit.
Yeah, and you
I
change as
also
you
want people
go
to,
and grow too, right? Like
yes,
it
yes,
the thing that worked now isn't going to necessarily work a year from now. So sorry, I didn't mean to
yes.
interrupt you.
No, no, I'm glad you said that, because that's why I'm always telling people, I'm like, listen, y'all are seeing me 9 years in. If y'all had
Yeah.
seen me at day 15, I mean, I was a hot mess express. I didn't know what to do with myself. We
Yeah.
evolve, we grow, we change what we say, we change what we do. And that's okay. And I want people to know too that this process is very rarely linear.
Mhm.
We are going to stumble, we may fall, and that's okay. It's all about just learning from that and just getting back on track. And that's where also I can see community really helps people as well.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Well, and one thing I think that I want to just mention about community that I think is important is it's a slower growing community, I feel like, in a lot of ways, because you're getting to know yourself in a new way, as are the people around you. And so
Yeah.
when you step into an alcohol free community, or people who are working to quit drinking, sober spaces, like you're all coming from this like very tender and raw place oftentimes. And so there can be this immediate like connection that happens, but it can also be like, then it can also sometimes feel like, well, why can't I experience that in my day-to-day life? Why can't I find those people in my local community, my physical community?
Hmm.
And I think it's important to just remind people that that happens over time, but it takes time, and it does take intentionality.
Yes.
So it's available and it's out there. Whether that means finding meetings, or whether that means going to, finding like just cool, like bottle shops and alcohol-free events
Right.
and spaces. Like there's so many ways to go about it now that is different than, especially when you quit, Karla.
Oh
Like
gosh, there was none of this.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like just remind like that it can feel very alone, but all of a sudden it's like, it's like, oh, I never see green cars. Now I'm seeing green cars everywhere,
Right.
right? Like
Yes.
all of a sudden now you're like, oh wow, I didn't know there were all these things. Like we just had in my town, we just had two mocktail bars open up.
Oh,
Like, I mean,
wow.
things are just shifting and changing. Yeah. And
Right.
it's just very exciting. So
Yes. Times
yeah,
have changed. Well,
yeah.
Brandy, thank you for being a good sport and letting me,
This was
just kind of
fun, Karla.
throw
Thank
these
you.
questions out at you. I knew you'd be a good sport about it. But again, just all these conversations are important to have. And but yeah, thank you for letting me pop like a pop quiz on a YouTube video.
Oh, this was great, Karla. Thank you so much. I appreciate this engagement we got to have today. It was a lot of fun. Look forward to the
Yes,
next
thanks for
one.
listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.